I'm gonna get this straight out of the way. Raid World War II is a good game with enough content. There's enough gameplay depth, guns, and maps to justify its asking price. What are you gonna buy for this price? A Unity asset flip?
So, in this video, I won't be talking about its monetary value as a product. Doing that would be pointless. The game is well worth its asking price, it is only 10 GB, it runs well, the artistry at work is coherent, and it still gets updates. However, I should also clarify that I am only talking about the Steam version of the game. The game is also on consoles, but they are not updating it for reasons. With that out of the way, let me shower this game with praise and criticisms. The game is good, but it could be better. There are some visible and invisible problems and some of my nitpicks because I like nitpicking. Let's talk about the obvious parts first, the gameplay. As John Cleese's special unit of 4, designed to sabotage, recover intel, and disrupt Nazi regime, you fight against Nazi in this game. What a shocker, I know. The general goal is to complete the objectives while holding off Hitler's finest in a variety of locations in Nazi-occupied Europe. Every map has some variation to shake things up, and some maps encourage pseudo-stealth to complete some objectives without getting shot before all hell breaks loose anyways. This is an action game through and through with mechanics that support careful aggression. Player damage mechanics at play are flexible in-game and fair to the player. First of all, you have your health pool. You will try to keep your health as high as possible for emergencies. You have recovery options in the form of enemy caches and drop health kits. If you only had health against hitscan army, that would mean you would have situations where player loses health by getting bitch slapped from behind. In PvE design, making the player lose essential resources without their control is a sin. So the game comes with a hidden, regenerating, Halo-type shield with gating. Gating is a mechanic in every game ever released that prevents excessive amounts of damage in players' favor. Raid World War II with its hidden armor has armor gating as a means of reducing the number of unfair health losses and as a means of initiating picks and plays. It regens once you stop getting shot. The game gives you active feedback on hits you take with flinching. If you don't flinch, this means your armor took damage. If you do, your health did. Besides armor gating, the game has iframes for players when they get hit. Getting shot will give you a damage immunity for 0.45 seconds. This is an excellent combination of baseline abilities, and understanding your health is never alone in a fight is key to understanding the rhythm of the combat. On top of that, Raid has this Warcry
system that gives an extra ability that charges with kills. Each one is different, but they range from panic button to team support. The overall flow of combat changes from aggressively pushing your advantage to backing down constantly. It's an extremely dynamic tug-of-war design. Your job is to keep as much of your advantage as possible at any given point by utilizing your surroundings, Warcry, guns, and grenades. You kill Nazis to fill your Warcry meter, choose the situation you think is appropriate to use it, start the cycle again with kills, scavenge ammo and health from the ones that drop dead, and cover your teammates' backs. It is an extremely satisfying loop of juggling different roles of play and management of health, ammo, and your special ability with randomized elements like ammo drops. The point is that there are enough things to keep your mind on during a raid. The game forces you to make a decision on the spot at any moment. Raid World War II has a great combat loop for a PvE action connoisseur. You are limited in some ways, but you're not a complete pushover. Nazis provide enough of a challenge to balance out your wits, and the dynamic pace of combat is endlessly engaging and fun. You are a raider, you bring just enough to go toe-to-toe with the opposition. Raid has an extremely solid combat core, and hopefully with the next update, it will get even better. While other PvE games usually have some sort of supportive deployable or tool, Raid doesn't have any of that. The only thing you bring with you to war is violence. Literally, you only bring a knife, 2 guns, and a grenade with you to fight against a literal Nazi army. You scavenge basic healthcare on the field. While it would have been annoying not to have that sort of tools, but Raid actually uses this to feed into its combat loop so you don't feel its absence at all. Different games with different gameplays require different player toolkits, and Raid's toolkit is... Look, I like this game, but I don't understand the player arsenal. First of all, the game has sustained fire bloom. The game doesn't tell you this aside from a tooltip, but it does have it. This wouldn't be an issue if the game had a dynamic crosshair. If your game has a mechanic that impacts as fundamental as clicking mouse 1, you should communicate that to the player in some way. I legit didn't know this was a thing, and I just thought, this SMG has dogshit accuracy, I'm gonna switch to a rifle next game. The only reason I know this game has this mechanic is because I checked the decompile of the game. I shouldn't have to check the decompiled source code of a game to know a fundamental mechanic the game failed to communicate. Sure, the game has bullet tracers, which I failed to notice because I have a habit of turning down graphic settings in games I play to help my 6.5-year-old laptop muster more frames for recording, and the fact that 20-year-old gaming did some damage to my eyesight. Just relying on graphics to communicate a fundamental mechanic isn't ideal, especially since sustained fire bloom changes from gun to gun. The solution is a dynamic crosshair option that is turned on by default. Here's a rough mock-up I made. Second of all, balance. I can't give good insight into the balancing of weaponry because of this weapon challenge system. This is awful, and I hope they add some sort of currency to fill these challenges. They don't need to go away, they just need to be faster, or allow you to change to an unupgraded gun and get some attachments with your gun currency, so you literally don't start from scratch when you want to do something as simple as switching guns. However, I want to say this, the guns I tried were fun with punchy sounds and snappy controls. M1 Carbine is about as high on my list as SKS and Sandstorm, and I consider SKS as the pinnacle of digital art. However, I think secondaries should be more pronounced. There are 5 of them, and all of them are equally useless and feel the same. You'll always be better off reloading your primary than switching to your sidearm. How about giving these dedicated uses? Mauser can be a jack-of-all-trades option to pair with the jack-of-all-trades primaries. Tokarev could be an ammo-efficient option with low damage, to pair it with high-damage, low-ammo capacity weapons. Webley could be a pocket sniper with lower rate of fire. The shotgun should be the burst damage option with low range, instead of being only good to give a handjob to that officer that just popped out from a corner. And the 1911 can be the inaccurate burst damage option to give that flamer's tank a good old slap. Secondaries should be complementary to your primaries, instead of being useless the majority of the time. Every time I thought I would get use out of the secondary double-barrel shotgun, I wasted my time, and that's not a good feeling for a double-barrel shotgun. In fact, I have a tip for you. Don't swap to your secondary at close range, swap to your knife. You're technically British Special Forces in this game, so your knife is much more effective than a mere 9mm pistol. They should be more pronounced, with dedicated roles to mix and match with much better primaries. Also, imagine doing insanely specialized loadouts by doing things like a double shotgun loadout, or a bolt action and a revolver. But as it stands, secondaries are just weaker jack-of-all-trades guns, or not remotely effective at all. Primaries I tried were way more effective and fun to shoot, even though I lacked the upgrades because of this unfun weapon progression system. They all felt effective for what they are. Some of them were insanely specialized, and I don't have any complaints about the primaries except maybe add some historically accurate sights on some of them as upgrades. And lastly, the Warcry system. You have 4 of them, and each of these abilities are given to a class. Yes, there is a class system, and yes, I know I didn't mention it because it isn't all that important. Yeah, well, it is important, but the system does have holes in its design to the point that they're reworking it. First of all, the progression of different classes is just kinda tedious, and you have to level them up individually. My estimated time for leveling up all the classes is around 30 to 60 hours. The game has enough content for around 15 hours, which is a lot for a small game, but it isn't long enough to reach the top of the sandbox unless you're dedicated. Leveling is also kinda boring in general, but that's true for many games. Second of all, the classes are uneven. Assault has self-healing as well as team healing. Great to have it on the team. Recon has aimbot, healing, and extra damage to the team. Again, not bad. Insurgent has wall hacks and god mode when maxed out and speeds up the team. Demo has infinite cluster grenades in a gun and objective focused game. I never used the demo, nor have I seen my friends or even some random players use it. Even at a surface level, the other 3 classes are way more useful. And lastly, the skills are just not equal in blatant ways. 5% movement speed while crouching, while sprinting, or just in general. All 3 of these are at the same level. Recon has access to bolt actions. Out of 19 weapons in the game, Recon has access to 4 of them just for itself. No other classes can use it, nor you have a reason to use anything besides a bolt action on Recon, because your Warcry is dependent on them. So the choice between increasing the damage on Sniper versus other classes isn't a real choice. If you look at it, even at a surface level, you can see why they want to rework this entire system. I trust the dev team on this, and I can't wait to see this change and unified progression between all the classes. And this screen can be used like save slots if you want to start over or something. Now that I mentioned the classes, I want to give this tip. Pick Insurgent for your first class, especially if you don't have friends to play with. Damage mitigation with the press of a button is useful in every scenario. Want to push objectives? Press it. Want to kill Flamer with better safety? Press it. Want to revive your bot AI or teammates? Press it. Especially in solo, where you have all the resources for yourself, the health and ammo sustain of assault and recon isn't all that useful, but damage mitigation is. And then if you go outside and find friends, you can continue using Insurgent for multiplayer, since having an Insurgent in the team is always useful for a variety of scenarios. Second tip, stack the same skills as you level up, or don't and spend gold to fix it later down the line. My picks are general movement speed, stamina regen, faster weapon reading after a sprint, more health and damage resistance, reload speed, and longer Warcries. I use M1 for Insurgent, so I picked melee damage for this tier, but if you're going for SMGs or shotguns, pick damage for those. The system as it currently stands is just hostile to experimentation, and this is a criticism for the weapon progression as well, and I can't wait to see this change in the next update. Maps are generally good. They range from open maps to corridors and even vertical spaces, or a combination of all of them. That's on top of RNG shaking things up. What is totally awesome is the variety of maps with the totally awesome set pieces thrown in order to give you the scope of this small-ass game's maps by listing what you can do in them. You sabotage a fucking giant-ass Zeppelin by blowing it up with a flak cannon. You rob Nazi gold by calling an airstrike into a bank and drive off with this stupid-ass car to escape with a plane. You steal the Amber Room, the actual fucking Amber Room that no one knows what happened to it. You hold off a tank while your accomplice is tapping into Nazi comms for intel. You blast an entire bridge to stop a train carrying Nazi gold to Berlin. You storm a castle to assassinate captured Russian generals to prevent intel leaks for allies. You storm a bunker to rescue captured pilots, sabotage a tank deposit, kill SS soldiers that took over the village in a giant forest map, take over a Nazi checkpoint to prepare an ambush to assassinate a sommelier, and while you wait for them to roll out to your trap, you hide in foxholes. Sommelier is what you call a wine expert, by the way. Roll a fucking payload of bombs to blow up a giant fucking rocket while the facility crumbles around you while you escape by parachuting from a cliff. Storm into a Nazi gold depot and pry open the vault using a fucking tank. Steal fighter jet plans and escort spies that found it out of the area by plane. The variety and context behind the stuff you do is fucking impressive for such a small fucking game, with set pieces and environments straight out of Downfall. All the while, the mission select screen with this dossiers accompanies you. And these are just regular raids. There are also 3 outlaw raids which you can unlock by finding dossiers around the map, which you can complete once every dossier is found. These are pure profit raids where you do things behind mission control, and keep all the things you stole for massive profit. There are 3 of them: Rogue's Gallery, which is Ilya's I'm Bored project, Forest Convoy, and the third one I haven't played yet. On top of that, you have Operations. 2 of them in fact. These are multi-stage maps where you try to work towards an overall goal. Best way I can describe them is like small old-school Call of Duty campaigns. And the overall visual design of the levels with landmarks and other stuff visible in different maps gives you a sense of a connected map. It's just great. Playing every map twice and playing every operation once alone would net you about 10 to 15 hours of gameplay. That's on top of the hub world of this game, the camp. The camp is under a church, and you have tables for every function in the game all close by. No disconnected menus required, but if you think hub worlds are gay, you can press escape and reach everything that the tables provide with a boring menu. Raiders crack jokes, talk about their past, tell stories while you're sitting in the hub. This is one of the better hub worlds. It isn't amazing if you compare it to something like DRG, but I take this over Vermintide 2's gargantuan hub, which is so huge it's unironically a waste of time to traverse. All the map stuff are good and all, but I have some gripes. I'll start from the least important to most important. RNG for some maps don't change things all that much. Your approach to a certain map, or a map's difficulty, is rarely affected by RNG. This is just a missed opportunity in my very humble opinion. Second of all, fix this airlock and countdown. I don't know what's wrong with it, and I don't want to speculate. Lastly, fuck shoot the bomber's objectives. What is supposed to be a power fantasy moment and a cool set piece feels like a sloppy chore. AA guns turn slower than my grandmother's, and one of my grandmothers is in bed and the other's in the ground. There's no feedback on AA guns with no bullet tracers and a crosshair that just doesn't make sense. Sometimes I shoot at a plane and sometimes I shoot ahead, and I generally don't know which approach works because the damage of the planes seems random. And the amount of planes you're forced to shoot is outright comical. Shoot down 20 planes on very hard, which show up periodically, all the while handling Nazi spawns while you're sitting in an exposed position with an unresponsive turret with no feedback isn't something I would call fun.
Enemies are fun to fight. You have your regular infantry with various flavors, ones with rifles, ones with pistols, automatics, etc., with different health values of course. You will be fighting a lot of these, and most of them deal a good amount of damage. There are specials like snipers that sniper from high places, flamers which are just pure chaos, spotters that call in artillery on the map, and officers. Aside from snipers, which you have seen in every PvE game, the other three pretty unique for this type of game. Flamers are tanks that force you to engage them in a certain way. They leave ground fires that hurt you and enemies. The flamethrower itself is blinding and deals a good chunk of sustained damage, and if you kill it by shooting its tank, it explodes and deals damage to everything. These guys are your number one priority when they get close. Shoot the tank or corner pick him with grenades while killing everything else around them, circle strafe them to death. You can often hear one before you see them with their deep breathing noises through that mask. You got options and they bring a lot of chaos to the fight with their indiscriminate fire. Spotter is a sniper variant. They can be found in maps where you have a clear sky above you. Instead of shooting you, he shoots a flare, and if you can't kill him before he shoots that flare, or snuff out the flare yourself, artillery starts shooting the entire map. This artillery lasts for a while and deals good damage to both you and your enemies. Normally something as drastic as a fucking artillery strike would be a set piece. In Raid, this is a dynamic event triggered by the player's inability to react to an enemy. Or, if you already have shelter, you might just wanna let it rain. The explosions deal damage to enemies after all. You may be asking why they're shelling their old man, but this is the Nazis we're talking about. If they were smart, they wouldn't have waged war against the entire world. By far the best enemy design in the game, and my only issue is that there aren't enough maps that support this unit. And finally, the officers. These guys are kinda confusing. The way I learned what they actually do is just ask Stalin. Not this one. Stalin told me that the officer just changed fathers to stronger fathers, map-wide. So having an officer anywhere on the map means you will get stronger variants of common Nazis. These variants just exist for the officer, by the way. Yeah, immense amount of effort for just one special. To make it extra confusing, some scripted spawns use the officer variants to fuck with you, I suppose. Stalin has two problems with the officer. There's a single spot in Odin's Fall where he gets stuck sometimes, and he sometimes chooses to leave the map on a faraway exit. While he's on the map-wide spawns will never go back to weaker variants, so that is a problem as well. Stalin suggests that radio buzzes like audio cue for the moments he got stuck to fix this issue. While this won't work on every map, because some of them are huge, it is at least an attempt. Anyways, if you see him, shoot him, kill him, shank him, this is a unit you can't ignore, not because it itself is dangerous, it is because it throws the tug-of-war design of the pacing out of the window just by being present on the level. It's not like enemies spawned by the officer is particularly tough, they deal like 15% more damage and like 20% extra health, but that's completely enough to shift the tide. Aggression is important cause just bunkering will lead you to see officer spawns and eventually die. You have to get out and find him to get your grooves back. I don't hate this unit, by the way. I think throwing wrench into the game's pacing gear is pretty interesting from a design standpoint, and it is usually easy to handle. But sometimes you can't find the fucker on the map and that's just pretty annoying. The enemies are fun to fight, especially the Flamer, which is just walking chaos whose death can help you kill a couple more if you're cheeky. But I think few more special enemy designs wouldn't hurt. Maybe a heavy gunner is a variant of Flamer who just sits back instead of charging in. Sure, if a unit like that exists, it would require less health than a Flamer to make it not obnoxious to fight. But yeah, I'm sure with enough brainstorming, anyone can come up with new designs. I like the reactive, dynamic pacing of this game, and having more variants of specials to react to would be awesome. Don't get me wrong, what is there is perfectly fine and serves their function and is fun to fight for the most part, but this is actually a situation where I think more is justified. Yes, I know John Cleese does voiceover for these in the Intel desk, and adding more would mean you need to call back John Cleese to do more of it. Or, just ignore it and do it anyway. Yes, I know making a new enemy unit is hard work. You need a new model, new sounds, new enemy code stuff like AI, weapon preset stuff, make sure animations and hitboxes match for clients, etc. Especially since the current dev team don't have audio or animation tools. But aside from fixing this terrible progression for classes and just progression in general, this will be the biggest contributor to the gameplay, aside from what they're already working on. And chances are, they will take less time to making a new gun for players or making an entire new map. That's all I can spot with the core gameplay, and aside from the first 2 points, the rest of the problems with this game is progression. This game has a bit of a checklisting problem. Kill 150 enemies with hipfire to unlock this attachment. Woohoo! I'm so excited. I hate it when games dictate checklisting as a form of progression. Doing boring tasks isn't engaging, and I hope they change things around. Just look at this footage. I'm running around in a lower difficulty trying to unlock an attachment. It is a soulless task, especially when the game has enough gameplay depth that it doesn't need things like this as a form of engagement, especially to players that would play games like this. I think the game would benefit from some sort of gun XP that you can spend on any gun to get attachments. It can work with the challenge system as well. Let's say you got 150 kills for this attachment and you got like 300 gun XP. Now you can spend it on this attachment to lower the grind, or switch to a different gun to unlock attachments for those. I don't know if this will be the correct way to do it, but I know that it should be significantly faster than just waddling around in a map just getting kills. Oh wait, wrong game. That's all for the gameplay stuff. I also want to talk about the art style, the visual design, and the sound design of the game. The sound design is good, not much to say about it. Here are a few examples of it, I suppose.
Righty-ho then.
Ich sehe sie!
Off to find a quiet spot for my pet Nazi here. Hang on.
Was war das?
Isn't
Hey, check it out. The bunker over there's got a door.
something of a design flaw, wouldn't you say?
So we pick the lock and sneak through, huh?
Come on, you little... Unless I am mistaken, those bunkers are our way in, chaps. Chop chop. Hide and seek, cherries. Got you. It's a little top hole. Got one. Just finding a home for this fellow. Super. That's the main gas pipe on. Once it's finished, everything will be tickety-boo. Or tickety-boom, perhaps.
The visual design is consistent with some teeny tiny nitpicks. Overall picture of the game looks consistent, and there are some genuinely stunning environments present in the game. Everything looks like it belongs in the game. My issue is that animations of some of the guns is... yeah. This looks great. It is a smooth, snappy reload. This looks like Call of Duty 1. There are some inconsistencies present with the first-person animations, but I don't expect these to get improved considering only 4 people are working on this game right now. Yeah, I will get to the dev team. There are some things I think you would like to know about it. The characters are really good. You have the British Sterling, who pretty much never yells because he's such a gentleman. You have the Russian Kurgan, that escaped from Gulag and speaks in third person, and unironically ate a wolf when he was escaping.
And death by white bear. At last, Kurgan is on own, in Siberia, in blizzard, with only dogs. All are very hungry. Then, dog kills rabbit. Kurgan, so very hungry, finds self-fighting dog for rabbit. Vicious struggle for survival, in middle of Arctic waste. But eventually, Kurgan concede. Rabbit is tiny morsel after all. Let dog win. Take prize. Dog feel much better. Warm Kurgan's heart to see. Then, Kurgan eat dog. After all, much more meat on dog. Particularly one that just eat rabbit.
You have the American Rabbit. He's an American. Not even a stereotypical one, he's just kind of bland. And you have the German Wolfgang, who is the most interesting character for me. His backstory is this. He tried to do some underhanded stuff to get some money and his political rivals exposed that. So he joins the gang, not because he's a good human being, but because he wants to benefit from the gang's capital while having his revenge. Suffice to say that it's just about 1,000,000 times more interesting than he's an ex-Nazi, but he saw the errors in his ways, little goody two-shoes type of character. And if you're asking how I know all of this, well, the game tells you by the stories the characters tell in the camp and this intel desk. They all bicker to each other during the map to remind each other what they should do, with the voice lines for stealth and loud. In other words, they have actual dialogues written for them. Them reminding each other the objectives are also helpful. You have to remind yourself that during World War II, we didn't have earpieces, so your fucking handler can tell you exactly what the fuck you should do at any given fucking point.
Let's get you back in blammo!
So characters have to speak more, and I'm glad they do. It adds ton to the atmosphere. Aside from conversations they may have, the individual lines are also written rather well. The random comments during combat, and the corpse carrying remarks range from good to witty. The tone of the game is somewhat all over the place though. I never mentioned this till now, but this game has gore. Weaponry is incredibly authentic looking, with everything looks just right. The proportions to the correct iron sights used on most guns. In fact, some guns look so authentic, it actually hurts the gameplay clarity with those old iron sights. Please add old sights as upgrades, please. There's an attempt at making the game look as authentic as possible. Yet, whenever you finish a map, Saturday cartoon Hitler shows up to act as a comedy relief. For fuck's sake, John Cleese is technically in the game for the 5 seconds every time you unlock a new map, and he's one of the actors I think of when I think of comedy roles. The environments in the game with debris and death everywhere, the oppressive and dull color atmosphere, alongside authentic gun, enemy, and character design with period-appropriate language on top of gore, clashes hard when you put next to Heil Hitler himself. Everything aside from the Hitler gives this vibe. There's a fucking war going on right now. I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into this stuff and stuff like gore is supposed to be perceived as fun. Alongside Hitler. Fun time with Hitler, everyone. But when I put everything together, something ain't welding together well. Yes, our playable characters also sometimes say witty lines, but those are kept to a minimum. Look at this first trailer for Raid. Aside from the goofy mask, which happens to be a creative workaround for the lack of production resources, the tone and the vibes it's giving off is much darker. The visual design getting altered from pre-production to production isn't something new to games, but I don't know how much of it is on the shoulders of Lime Lion or Starbreeze, the publisher. I'm sure John Cleese is here because of Starbreeze, since John Cleese also appears in Payday 2. Regardless, the tone is off. Not a big deal, but I think it's important to mention it. Speaking of which, Starbreeze. They published this and the game is using their diesel engine. You know, the racing engine that has been used for more FPS games than racing for 20 years. Yeah, that one. They upgraded it for the Raid World War II. The engine is 64-bit, the file loading is much faster, the performance is better, but it wasn't always like this. It was 64-bit before, but I'm gonna be honest here. I tried talking about Raid World War II before, back when I had like 400 subscribers. Back when I had 400 subscribers. It's so hard to say this fucking word. I bought this game with the express purpose of making a video on it. The game was a stutter hellhole and I had to drop it after 2 hours. I could have just wrote it off as bad like any other YouTuber who shit-talks this game and follows up with a 60 FOV footage of Payday 2 on Mayhem difficulty where they just run around with a katana and pretending they know what they're talking about any of these games. But I knew just 2 hours where I didn't even got consistent at the highest difficulty wouldn't be sufficient to make a proper judgment for it. Too bad the game was just not playable enough for me to actually play it. So the mad lads in Lion just gave away the development of the game to modders. Update 21, the current version of the game is working because of dedicated modders assuming developer roles as a passion project. If these modders worked on this game for free, and still working on it as of now because they like the game, I will sure as shit gonna give it a fair spin. At the same time, I feel like a dipshit for criticizing issues that they are already aware of and started to fix and improve things internally, but issues are still issues and this is my video, so be quiet. When I launched Update 21 Beta, I saw how much smoother the game was. It was genuinely playable now. And after I experienced its ups and downs, I got to this conclusion. I like the game, despite its flaws, some of which these modders are working on right now. Modders did a fantastic job yet again, and the good old Diesel engine is still alive and kicking. Diesel is doing a great job because competent people who know what they're doing don't rush things and give in control. Thank you Leon, Rex, Mephalzor, and Zelatron for your ongoing efforts. You fixed up another one of Starbreeze's unfortunate victims. A bad launch by Starbreeze/Overkill is more common than you think. Payday 2 had a terrible crunch development and it was rushed. Raid had a terrible crunch development and it was rushed. Overkill's The Walking Dead had a terrible crunch development and it was rushed. Payday 3 had, yeah, you get the point. And the times where Payday 2 just gives me this error. It is nice to know that the Diesel engine game is still getting some love. Diesel is a competent engine with its own upsides for games that doesn't try to be the next big thing in all of gaming, and Raid World War II is the last game that uses it and looks to remain that way. Small studios making and using their own engines to compete with giants is a myth now. There are so few of them left. All hail Unreal.